It's me, Vera, here to remind you that this is an adult podcast. That means we're going to deal with tough topics. Take a break if you need it, and be kind to yourself, because we sure won't be.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Crack Crown, a Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition podcast. As always, I am your storyteller, Mike Martin, today joined by the wonderful Bub and Dot for a little bit of a duo episode, or a pair of duo episodes for this week and next.
Yes.
Hey, guys, how you doing?
You know, we're hanging in there, doing all right. How are you, Mathis?
I'm good. I'm excited. Because we've been talking about the next couple of episodes, so we kind of know what's on the way. I'm excited to see how it all plays out, though, because nothing ever goes according to plan. So for you listeners out there who enjoy this chaos and want to support us, hey, the best way to do it is twofold. Either just listen to the podcast, share it with people, let them know. You can jump on the Discord, which is totally free, and jump into a community of almost 1,000 people. But if you love the show and want to go above and beyond and financially kind of support us, you can do so over at patreon.com/podbynight. There's a few tiers for you. They get you a little extra stuff, like the $5 tier will get you the after show and audio version. $10 tier gets you the video version and a bunch of other special stuff. And it really just makes sure we get to do this as we come to our mini little summer break as con season begins and we prepare for the next phase of Pod by Night when that ends. I'm excited for it. We have a lot of plans for you, but we can't jump too far ahead as we've got some Crack Crown to finish up. So we're just going to dive right in. If everybody's good, we're going to go ahead and set the scene, rein things in, and see what dear old Duke and Vera are up to. And instead of fading into our scene of our familiar empty room in a concrete basement somewhere out on the outskirts of Gary, Indiana, where the occasional truck rolling by vibrates the ground just enough to be able to be detected as the muted sound of them travels across the broken asphalt outside. There's a big pothole out there. Instead, we're somewhere else, still within Gary, in a nicely lit room on this clear night, as a breeze on the outside indicates the incoming fall. But we don't hear footsteps or combat. Instead, we first hear the sounds of what seems to be scribbling, a writing utensil on a hard surface. And as we peer through the window and fade in, we can now see a letter. It's our entire camera shot is just this letter as it's being written, slowly panning back to see the elegant hand attached to the pen that belongs to none other than Vera. And as we pull up over her shoulder and we tilt our vision upward, in the corner, standing and watching, is Duke. But we hear Vera's voice.
Greetings. I feel it pertinent to inform you and yours that over the next few nights you may find the streets of Gary, Indiana more pernicious than usual. I advise you to vacation, get out of town, or seek safe accommodations until the dust has settled. You'll know you can come back out and play once the howling has stopped. Consider this advance notice a favor for your counsel and company at the party. Signed, the Black Raven. Too much? Is it too much, Duke?
As she says that, her vision in her head snaps up from the letter, looks to Duke, and that air of superiority doesn't dissipate, but she looks to and speaks to Duke in a much more casual tone.
I would say it's dramatic, but it's informative. It gives them everything that they need.
I mean, I'm really doing them a favor, if you know what I mean. I just thought a little pomp and circumstance might shake them, because really, we do have to have some kindred left standing when it's all done.
You're not wrong. Let's see who listens.
Well, we'll actually see who's smart. And Vera slides the black piece of stationery that she was writing on, and probably like gold pen, into a matching black envelope, and you see her drip gold wax, and she seals it with a wax seal that is that of a raven. And she goes to the door, and outside is John, and she simply hands it to John and says, "John, be a dear and go meet that messenger or whatever from the local faction council with this letter, please?
He simply nods, "Of course, madam." And he reaches forward slowly with his index and thumb gripping the corner of the envelope, and he pulls it close to himself as he slides it in his inside jacket pocket. "Is there anything more I could do for you or Master Duke?"
Not this evening, though we will be going for a light walk. I have something that I'd like to show Duke.
"Please, as always, be safe, madam. The Gary is a place filled with Shawns."
Yes, and many other things. But you too, come home a little earlier than usual. There is some disruption on the streets.
He nods, "Of course, madam. Enjoy your evening, Master Premind." And he turns to his left and
John.
begins to shuffle off.
Well, Duke, how do you feel about a little walk, adventure into the streets of Gary, Indiana? I have something I want to show you.
Suppose it wouldn't be a problem. Would enjoy some night air.
See, that's what I was looking for. It's not always business, Duke, but it is sometimes. And tonight, it is.
I imagine she's saying that with a smile as she's reaching for her hat hanging elegantly on a nearby stand, slides it across her head, and she steps out the door. And as she steps out the door, so too does our vision fade and pan across a city block or two before we pick back up, seeing Duke and Vera walking side by side as Vera is guiding him somewhere within Gary, Indiana. As you stride down the concrete sidewalk, we can hear the more rapid high heel clicks with the paired with the steady, slower, longer gait of Duke.
As usual, our interests align in certain ways. You want to get back at Jackson. We both want to get the hell out of this town. And we'd like to earn a little something along the way, and be rightfully compensated for all the hard work we've provided the Camarilla over the years.
We have provided a vast amount of efforts. I think that it has been long overdue.
As Duke says that, out of a nearby nearby liquor store, it's still open. The bars are across it. You can see some chains that are pulled up from the door, still very open. A man from the corner who's got a raggedy long beard, completely disheveled, bald with the exception of a few strands on the side, and a rather sunken eyes, emaciated looking. And he comes over and he's kind of scratching his side, and he looks you up and down, Vera. "How much?"
I'm sorry.
"How much?"
Oh, poor soul. I'm too cheap for you to afford.
He looks over to Duke. "You got anything?"
I have nothing but time. I think you should leave.
Is that a command, or is that just a social kind of just a persuasion manipulation?
It's a gift. It's just a recommendation.
It's a recommendation.
It's not so much.
Is it? Make me a roll. Is it intimidation, persuasion? Are you looking at that kind of thing? What are you?
I am hoping to lean on some of my my daunting
I
merits
see what you're saying.
of looking and feeling
So my bad.
awkward in most situations.
He simply looks up as you give him this recommendation. He locks eyes with you for a moment. I know you don't use any disciplines, of course, but it is, as he locks eyes, almost as quickly as he looks into yours, his eyes break away. He continues to seemingly try to look into your eyes, but you watch the fear very openly. You can almost smell it in his blood the longer he hangs around. And without saying a word, he kind of reaches his right arm over and grabs his left elbow, turns and begins shuffling his way quickly back to the liquor store where he wandered from.
Tell me, Duke, when you look around Gary, what do you see?
You say that as you see the guy start to harass somebody else.
Refuse. I see a place forgotten. I see a sore, a blight, waiting to be healed.
But see, Duke, what if we are not the healing ointment for this wound, but the festering bacteria that turns it into an infection? I think I've been thinking about Gary all wrong. We were told to come in here and fix it and bring it back under Jackson's rule, but the problem with Gary is that it's not leaning into its degeneracy. When you came through my door, trying to blackmail me for insurance fraud. The average person would have thought, I'm fucked. I thought, now here's an opportunity. Gary, Indiana is a similar opportunity. Just like Sean. Just like the first time I laid eyes on Max. And even Robert. Each of you stumbled into my life in one way or the other, and when I should have thought, oh fuck, I thought, now here's an opportunity. What if we stop trying to fix Gary, Indiana, and just give it more of what it needs? Like slutty tire shops, and gambling casinos, and liquor stores. Turn it into a degenerate tourist trap for Chicago.
I'm not opposed to that, but I don't intend to stick around long enough to see it become Sodom.
Well, the good news is we don't have to, because it will become a festering wound for Jackson. Isn't that the point?
I suppose it's not what he's after, but if it's something that's controllable, finances, anything that might be beneficial.
Well, most men, including Jackson, don't actually know what he wants until he wants it. He'll not turn down the kind of money a place like that brings in. Think about Atlantic City, or Coney Island, or Vegas. These places are built off the backs of the money of the degenerate who simply are trying to fill their empty lives with something.
You're not wrong.
I thought maybe you and I could give it a little, full look. Gary is in desperate need of some good leadership. And who are the most two manipulative people in it? Well, that's us. So all we have to do is find the leadership and manipulate them the way we want. Gary will begin shaping them. Turn their little Christian households into, modern day sins, really. Kind of.
What did you have in mind?
Well, I thought we'd start with the biggest eyesore in Gary, Indiana, one that really screams commercialism.
I'm listening.
Well, before I dive too deep, I'm going to be honest with you tonight. Full transparency.
You said it as if you've never been that with me before.
Well, I'm usually transparent, but even Vera Volkov has her secrets. Though I would be a fool to think you haven't had some inkling. But I didn't bring you out here tonight just to show you the shitty streets of Gary, Indiana. I brought you out because I want to make you a business deal. A proper one.
Appeal to my worst side.
Well, I sure know how to get to everybody's worst side, but that's what makes me me. You've been filing my business information for a long time, funneling my money into certain bank accounts and investments. I'm sure you've realized that it is not my name on all of them.
That's correct. I have come to recognize a few names, two of which stand out. One, Vera Volkov, another, someone else close to you.
Yes.
John.
John is very close to me. He is the last full standing representation of my old life before all of this. Some would call that a weakness. Some might call it a strength. But the fact of the matter is, he's part of my life. And not just because he and I both, loved the same man. When I rescued him from that horrible institution, times were different. Masking yourself in the picturesque 50s society was difficult. So we became legally married.
I didn't believe that there were a mincing of names or a clerical error, but I was waiting for you to inform me.
Well,
At least confirm my suspicions.
even in the 50s, you could choose not to take his last name. But I did all of this because I needed to assure that he remained unsundried by the kindred lifestyle. No ghouling, no blood. I promised his father I would keep him safe. And what kind of promises if I use him as a blood bag? So, I treated him like my own. True flesh and blood, left him untouched so that he could not be sniffed out or hunted by kindred, so that his likelihood of a lupine slitting his throat open was less, and in the end, when he dies, all of his assets are left to his wife. It's a lot of assets, Duke.
I've come to recognize.
As much as I'd like to say John is still a spry young boy, well, you and I both know that's not true.
I imagine it's been some time since he's been described as spry.
Spry of the heart, Duke. But regardless, his day will draw near. And I need two things from you. One, I need to make sure that the paperwork is squeaky clean. In return, you'll get a portion of whatever we acquire from John's assets. I take up the mantle as weeping widow. You my accountant. And we can do business as we see fit. The second is more personal. When John dies, we'll need someone to assure that I don't do the worst.
What does that look like, Vera? What does the worst look like in your eyes?
The worst that I can do? I've done some pretty horrible things even within my control. The idea of what I'm capable of outside of my control is terrifying even to me.
I respect that. Knowing your boundaries, your limits is incredibly important. It mattered the most when I was alive, but I seem to not recognize most of my own boundaries. Always pushing them, pushing the limits of society.
Well,
But now that I am what I am, and as close as we are, I'm happy to assist you. I do not need a cut, a bit of pay. I'm still trying to define what it means to be the shape of Vera Volkov.
yeah. Well, I can promise you it'll remain interesting, but again, would be lying if I said when you didn't return from New York I wasn't concerned about whatever business ideas that your sire put into your head. I'm sure he filled you up with blue blood words. Told you that you need to choose your business partners wisely. Hypocrite, he worked with Astor.
I believe that Astor was a point of manipulation. His declaration of interesting bedfellows did not fall on deaf ears.
Yes, well, a lot of good.
I can commiserate with said description.
I actually have nothing against your sire. I think what I'm saying is, I don't know much of anything except what you have told me about the Venture Way and, of course, what I have experienced myself. But we have been both friends and coterie for a long time. Tonight I'm asking you to be my business partner.
Interesting. Would you like this contracted as well?
If it makes you feel better. I'm happy to sign. But before I do, I wanted to show you this. And you can see their feet have probably carried them through Gary streets while they had this convo, and we've made it down to the river. And here on this docks or boardwalk, whatever it kind of is on the river, is a massive casino boat. Bub, you have a better idea of what it looks like. Do you want to tell everybody?
This is a pier.
It's a pier, even
out
better.
In Gary, yes. It is a pier off of a harbor in Gary, and it's known of a place of degeneracy. It's casino riverboats, two fairly successful riverboats. It's much as you might imagine in your head. These large and established, with a series of draped lights hanging all about, and it is alive. Though most of Gary seems to be this slow, decaying heartbeat, this is the epicenter, the lifeblood of and thriving portion of Gary.
How close do you get to the pier? Do you stay a good distance, or you can just kind of see it out in the distance? Or are you walking? Like,
I don't
right
walk.
up
I
to
don't
it?
walk all the way down to. I want you to be able to see it. If you get too close, you can't see the whole.
You can
boat.
see the lights and whatnot on it, of course. But so you're like a block or two out.
Yeah, so you can really get the picture of them both maybe pulled in side by side before they go out for the night. And Vera points and she says, This is the heart of Gary, Indiana. And our way to a lot of money, Duke. More importantly, it takes the river all the way up to the lake in Chicago. Easy transportation, good money.
On a different day, I would say that we could take our assets that we acquired from New York and move into this business venture, but I'm assuming that you're discussing what happens after the departure of John.
I have some money set aside if we wanted to make an investment now. What do they say, sooner rather than later? And then what we acquire after John has passed is icing on the cake. It will be many years if I have anything to say about it. But not even Vera Volkov can plan death.
We're going to have to dip into many of our skills native to our clan. Some things that might make us a bit uncomfortable, but I feel comfortable in your company. It's reassurance. As a partner, I'm willing to accept. This endeavor will cost millions of dollars.
Yes, it will. But not all of it will be on our backs. Technically, Gary, Indiana doesn't belong to the Drac Pack. Jackson wants it, which means, with a good enough business plan, 2 solid partners, I imagine he'll invest, but the real kicker comes. You don't have boats like this, gambling like this, if there aren't big wigs in town who have a lot of money. Right now, they just don't know where to put it. Unfortunately, you and I are going to have to make some friends, Duke. You're going to have to work on your smile.
I don't smile, Vera.
I know, it was a joke, Duke. Okay, I'll work on it. That being said, the mayor has an annual event. Businessmen, their wives, investors. I want to get tickets. The newly widowed Vera Volkov is in town with money to spend. With her accountant, of course. Because what? Wealthy widow doesn't travel with her accountant.
When is this set to be?
I'm going to have to do some more research. I'm not entirely sure on date and time, and acquiring a ticket is not an easy feat, unless, of course, we make a donation. But I thought, what better to make the donation than, well, the new tire shop. New business in town, supporting the local government. Aren't we darling citizens?
Kind of never been one to frown at incoming gifts of finances.
So I thought we would go. Dress up, make a good impression, manipulate a few people.
If you're intending to already be a widow, then you're hoping to usher John out sooner before later.
Only on paper. Or I could simply have a new mask while I'm in Gary. I imagine it's actually
Very well.
probably cheaper to, and easier on everyone, to file some paperwork than it is to kill John.
It's easy. Easy enough. Plenty of paper loopholes. Not an issue. Secondly, it's worth noting that an event of this caliber will likely have Maxwell.
We can only hope. I welcome his company.
Understood.
Maxwell's problem is he's been in hiding too long. He thinks his secrecy is going to gain him some level of one-uppings on us. But as I've said before, and I will say it again, Maxwell couldn't play the politics. He just wants to start a war, a coup. Maxwell lost. And if he thinks over all these years he's gained whatever harumph is needed for him to come back and make his way, he's wrong. And if he thinks he's going to do it on the back of the Drac Pack, well then he's also a fool. If he knew anything about us, if he was really concerned, he would have looked at New York and said, fuck, I should get the hell out of Gary, Indiana. But he didn't do that. So now he'll pay the price. And so will everyone else in Gary. Honestly, if Maxwell had just packed his shit and left, we would have never had to do any of what is coming. So now we all have to pay the price for Maxwell's stupidity. Because here's the thing, even if he survives, I want all the kindred in Gary, Indiana to know it was because of Maxwell that all their friends died. There's no way he can take over Chicago when everybody nearby hates him. Kill his legacy, kill his name. Oh, and kill his little crystal ball of a woman he's holding captive in his basement. All of it is beneath us.
Would hate to see an asset go to waste. Something of that caliber has a value far beyond any amount of zeros attached to a check.
Well, tell me more.
What better way to gain favor, curried favor, than to offer this book, this visionary, to an individual, a group of individuals, a clan.
Which clan? I'm not much of a...
If it were up to me, and I would hope that I would be heard on this ask, if it were up to me, I would personally deliver them to the Chantry in Chicago.
Well, if you have a way to get the Chantry to accept such a gift, it might be worth the consideration, but full transparency, Duke, I've moved a lot of things. Drugs, art, but I've never moved people. And that woman deserves a chance. And if we pass her off to the Chantry, she doesn't have one.
Maybe.
But maybe that's what she needs, or wants. Honestly, if I had it my way, I'd do the same with Mia.
Mia's leverage. She's teaching me many things, things of value.
Really?
Yes.
Like what?
I'm gaining access to the disciplines of her clan.
You are dabbling in Tremere magics.
Well, it's no secret that I had connections in New York. I was leveraging a beneficial relationship. And to say that things hit the fan is to, I suppose, undersell. I lost my contact. And if you remember, we were harboring the prince. Things didn't go so smoothly. And then we were not quite excoriated. We were removed. And now we're here in this shithole.
Yes, but it's our little shithole, isn't it? Which
For now.
For now. Mia...
If we moved to Chicago, I would still like access as a goal of mine, and to not necessarily indoctrinate myself in such a way, but to be welcome to maneuver about the Chantry and learn their ways.
To think the Chantry letting a Ventru walk the halls. It will be a cold day in hell. But I look forward to it. If there's anyone that can do it, it's Duke Primond.
With a bow on the visionary, it might be just the thing. Not quite a meal ticket, but at least a foot in the door.
Well, I'll say the same thing about the visionary as I'll say about Mia. When you tell me they have lost their value, then they must go. If the visionary is valuable now, you tell me how we plan to get her out of Maxwell's basement. Well, let's just not forget, planted a lupine heart. We will make it happen. Who knows, maybe she survives on her own, and we check on her after. I imagine even Maxwell himself would be a wonderful gift to Prince Jackson, but personally, I'd rather sweep him up into ash and toss him in the trash.
There are things significantly worse than death, and the value which it would bring, the rapport, the reputation.
All right. You tell me how we're going to get her, and we will get her. I imagine Sean will help you, no doubt.
I think we should return soon. I'm having visions of a death certificate that I must dream up, file for applications for legal junkets and performance of a casino of sorts.
Well, before we go, I promised you a business deal. And no business deal is sealed without the proper handshake. And you watch as Vera removes her, elbow-length gloves off her right hand, and Vera extends a completely bare hand to you.
Duke confused for a moment before extending his hand and grasping on. Not too tightly, but enough and firm so to seal a business deal.
And we shake on it.
The camera zooms in as the two hands reach for one another. We kind of track that. And just as the two grasp, all the music and the sound in the background mutes. We just a lingering shot of the hands, seeing Vera touching skin to skin, willingly, for the very first time, maybe this whole show. And it's on that note, with that silence, that lingering beat, the screen also cuts to black. And we'll be back next week with the last bit of this little duo. See you then, everybody. Goodbye.